Let me know when to hit.
What?
Thank you, everyone, for being here tonight for our regular monthly meeting. Today is Monday, October 16th, 2023. It is now 6:05 p.m. and I will call the meeting into order.
Thank you, Commissioner. We'll have a roll call to ensure we have a quorum. Commissioner Smith,
Here.
Commissioner Cousins, absent. Commissioner Wolf,
Here.
Commissioner Zakos,
Here.
Commissioner Bennett is absent, and Commissioner Decker.
Here.
We do have a quorum. The first order of business is public comment. Do we have any public comments today? No. I always like to get people. All right, thank you. We'll move forward. Whole business, and the minutes have been sent, and the accounts payable have been sent to the commissioner via email.
Yes.
We're looking to approve the minutes from the last meeting. Are there any questions?
No.
There's a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll make that motion.
In a second,
And I'll second it.
thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. The minutes are approved. Accounts payable. Are there any questions? We have a motion to approve.
I make that motion.
Commissioner Decker makes a motion, second.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Commissioner Wolf. All those in favor?
Aye.
The motion carries. At this point, we have the resident commissioners report, if there is any.
I have none.
Thank you. And the next on the agenda is the executive director report. And at this time, I'm going to yield my time to Marco so that they can talk with us this evening.
Thank you so much for having me. And John could not make it here tonight, but he sends his hellos and regrets for not being able to make it. For those of you guys, I know that there are some new faces here. I'm Yu from Melco. We are HAK's development partner in this project. I'll try not to spend too much time moving backwards with like the various mood boards and discussions, but kind of jumping off from here. But of course, if the board would like a recap at any moment, please let me know. So as you know, about a month ago, we were here with our latest springboard discussion piece, which was like a maximum build discussion. So since that discussion, we've had some various other meetings with tenants, with the city, and we've kind of come to this alternate proposal that we'd like to bring up to you guys. And again, this is still a springboard proposal. So it's not meant for the board to act on. We're not asking for you guys to adopt this as a redevelopment plan right now, but we are looking to move it forward into further discussions. And so in order to do so, there are some foundational aspects that we'd love to at least get your general agreement. So that's the hope for today. So as you might recall, we had these three buildings. It's across sites A and B. And sorry for those of you guys, it's both sites which are right now the basketball site as well as like the Bliss and Columbia sites are like two sites. I'm getting pictures taken to me. Sorry, getting self-conscious there. But we're still looking at that same like three buildings across like all of your 4 acres here. Site B being still targeted as the first site. And what the only modification we're looking at right now for discussion purposes is really the reduction of the height of buildings on all sites. I know that's going to be met with, like a loss of excitement of this maximum build concept. But it really is to kind of balance density a little bit more with also like the building heights. And I think just some community reaction that we're anticipating based on like 7 stories versus 5. So we're looking at modifying the 7-story proposals in there to 5. And we think that the maximum will be either 5 or 6, with 5 and 4 being the target mix of height. So each of those little blocks are guesses without reference to unit sizes, just guesses that, for example, a generic 1,100 square feet per unit all in. Each of those stories that is lost, it takes away about 20 units. So your new proposal, for example, for site B is about 100 and 1 units, and that targets the full still replacement unit for everybody at Bliss and Columbia. And then you'll see there's also some loss in on the A sites as well, and that now is about 100, I think 120 units. And together that is still an increase of units overall of about 80 units, a little bit more than 80 units. So hopefully that is something that we can just spend like a second just to hear feedback on, get your general consensus, and that will actually make a big difference in our discussions moving forward with the state, right? Because at the end of the day, it is still the type of build, the square footage, the unit count, these are all kind of important. While that will shift by 20%, you know, if we decide on more 1 bedrooms or 3 bedrooms, anything like that, it still makes a big difference in the conversation for financing moving forward. So it would be great if we can get like that discussion kind of a little bit more honed in. Again, I'm not asking for your agreement on any sort of like redevelopment plan, but just good to start that discussion with our financing partners and various like even for like the city who's going to be helping us with, you know, our pilot discussions. It would be great to have kind of that discussion with you guys. So I'm so sorry I'm putting you on the spot for that, but I'm just kind of hoping for some feedback. And again, nothing's getting locked down today. And I'll
Just your
Yeah.
thoughts or questions
Yeah.
or, you know, how do you feel about show us lower building less units, but you know, what are your general feelings about it?
Personally, I feel like if we're building these buildings, they're large structures. The original proposal, which was the highest building being 7 stories, still 2 stories shorter than this building we're in. If we're building these, I think we should maximize the units. The need, we know, is substantial in Hudson for housing. It seems like a loss to me to build a building and lose out on any potential units.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I know people are worried of a building that looks like this, but no, Aubrey Housing Authority just did an 8-story building. The top floor is the fitness center. The bottom floor is the laundry, but it's like long. So you don't even know it's like this tall, huge building. And it's like almost 200 units in that place. Like it's, no, I know people are concerned about the height, but it's really like the way you structure it out. And it's 280 North Pearl Street. If anybody is interested, it's brand new. It's been up for about a year now. It's absolutely gorgeous. And it's like an 8-story building.
And a lot of that is also about like design, obviously,
Yeah.
in terms of making it not appear
Yeah.
massive or foreboding or like, I mean, because I can imagine, I guess I'm curious about what kinds of thoughts have gone into the direction, like the cardinal directions of, you know, which ways these buildings face. And you were just mentioning that you know, passive solar and all of those things are something that you're very well versed in. And so I'm curious in terms of like height, if some of the buildings are taller than others, you know, can we make sure that the shade is going in desirable directions? That's kind of what I'm trying to get at.
That's
Because-
a great question.
And I also, I mean, I support also the need for housing in this community, like kind of is heavier than, you know, than fears about it overall being too tall. You know, I mean, I agree. It's like, well, I think the proportions of this tower make it, you know, feel, wow, really different from things around here. Still, it's like, you know, you kind of can't get around like how many units we need. And that's based, I mean, units that we need is based on lots of assessments
Yeah.
and studies that have been done, so.
Absolutely, and we definitely hear the need for it, right? So in the current proposal, this is not going to be a 1-for-1 response, by the way, like I'm acknowledging that. So in the actual proposal to which is gonna come before you for discussion, but like as earmarked for like even financing right now, we have like a solid 50% of the entire project, so at least the 135 units that are set aside for like extremely low income households, within the rest of it having some like economic diversity, but all 100% affordable housing. So definitely like the need for affordable housing as well as extremely low, like in housing for like extremely low incomes is definitely like a heart and soul of the project. Maximizing build is also something that, you know, we heard resonated, which is why we came to you guys with like the maximum build proposal first. So definitely appreciate both of those comments. And yes, to like the staggering, I think the staggering from, so it's interesting because this is where like your architects team and like your development team are not necessarily in sync right now. They will be, but like the architects team is doing it purely based on aesthetics, right? So that staggering, I'm not sure that it took into consideration the actual impact to like the way the arrays are lined for solar, but they had it purely presented for aesthetics, like, you know, the way that they see the building laying out. So we'll definitely take that into consideration, and ultimately there will be a sustainable consultant on board, which will speak to that as well, in terms of how many, you know, what you can draw from that circumstance, but like the proposal itself and how we can maximize.
If you can pardon me 1 second, Commissioner Cousins is online. She's not here at the meeting, but I'd like to know if she has any comments for based on what we're talking about.
I have spotty service. I'm on my way home sick. But I did see the project that Vonda was talking about, and it did change my view a little bit. So I'm not opposed to a taller building. Just want to make sure that we think about all options before laying something on the table. So I appreciate Vonda giving me that example.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for
Thanks
your
for
comments.
checking it out.
I feel better. Thank you.
Oh, sorry to hear that you're down.
Okay.
My thing is
Commissioner
this,
Decker?
Nick, it's not so much for you, but it's for the board itself. Do you think, take into consideration of the elevator? I mean, no disrespect to none of the board besides me, because I live here. The elevator, the plumbing. And then it's constantly the elevator person's here. You guys have to call plumbing, whatever, like outside agency to come here to figure out stuff for us. So do you really, like, I'm not saying not to go 7 or 8 stories, 9 stories, but think of that also about like the elevator issue. Because half the time we only have 1 elevator working. And then like, that's my biggest thing right there is the elevator. I mean, I get it that the elevator is gonna be brand new. Well, what happens 10, 20 years from now, after it's built, if something might go wrong? What's gonna happen then? So we're back at square one again with the elevator. I'm like I said, I'm not saying not to build up high, but just think things like that might happen if it's anything higher. That's all I'm saying, as a board.
Yeah, thank you for the
Yeah.
comment. The actual height is not gonna make a difference of whether the elevator works or not, but I do understand what you're saying.
Yes,
The elevators
absolutely.
will be new and will be under warranty. These, you know, if I'm not mistaken, these elevators have been there since the building is built. So
But you're saying if the elevator isn't working and and somebody lives on the 8th floor, that's
Yeah.
fine. I think
But
that's
if
right.
they, but if they live on the 6th floor, we'll have the same issue.
Yeah,
That's
you know,
fine.
yeah, like,
And Mary, I'm right there with you. I feel like during urban renewal, they didn't even care. They didn't even think of the structure of the building. They didn't care about the elevator or anything like that. And that's why I consider every little piece that I think that people did not consider. And unfortunately, they just popped us over top of this dump and said, here you go. So, yeah. I feel like with the developers we chose, they're gonna pick the right structure. They're gonna make sure everything is good underneath and all that good stuff. And that elevator is gonna work for as long as you live.
And remember also, based on, you know, our last meeting with our memorandum of agreement, you know, there is a section where we're going to, you know, acquire a owner's rep, and they're gonna be checking the build. You know, that's exactly the purpose of that, checking the construction, making sure we're getting the right material, deserved material, and so that the building will last. as long as possible. And that's why, you know, in terms of my vision and guidance, I want to ensure that we select items and put things in the building that are not going to just be aesthetically pleasing but lasting.
Yes.
I
Okay,
think that's, oh, sorry.
yeah, no, I'm sorry, go ahead. Yeah, this is great.
I was just gonna say that that's like a really, I think, valid concern that I think a lot of people in this building probably would associate with, given the issues with the elevator. And it's really sad, but I think that the situation is that like those kind of issues that are still occurring are the result of some really serious neglect over the year, before Jeffrey's time, before my time, way back. And it's not normal that a building would be operating with elevators going out like they are. And we certainly, like in building these new buildings, we're hopefully going to be making a fresh start. And we're going to be moving not just a little bit away from the kind of issues that we're seeing in this building and the age, but like far, far, far away from it. And so it's sad to hear, because it really is a valid complaint in this building, but it gives me hope again, thinking about the new structure and how, what a change in situations it's going to be, and how nice it's going to be
Yeah.
to have multiple elevators working, the laundry's always working, all of these kind of things.
Mhm.
I imagine, along with us having an owner's rep during the construction process, there will be something equivalent or a continuation of the owner's rep for a certain amount of time after construction to make sure that all of the systems, all of the utilities, everything are working properly. Large construction projects typically have something along those lines, so that it's not like construction's done, these guys are out of here.
Right.
We have the
Oh, we'll have
ability
time,
to,
right.
yeah.
Right.
Be monitoring all those things to
We'll
make sure things like the elevator, everything is working perfectly in a new building.
Right.
So I'll say separate, two things just on that, like casual response here. One is, so Malco is gonna stay like at the table, right, to guarantee the operations of the project. I mean, operations are more like budget operations, but as part of that also, we'll be here with you guys if there are any issues. And then secondly, with the like owner's rep comment too, so in addition to having an owner's rep who's gonna be looking out for like the scope and plans and specs, like perspective for like the HHA, the investor here is going to also have like a third party construction monitor. So that construction monitor is also, it's not any one of us, and it's not even the investor, it's like a special third party that they engage and they go up for RFP, like totally objective, that comes into the business. So like they are here at every rep meeting, at every like, you know, like withdrawal cert, like every inspection checkpoint between installation, plumbing, electrical, like, so they're actually here too at the table. So you have like not only your contractors, but you're also your investors, like construction monitor, and then you have like your own person too. So a lot of checkpoints along the line to make sure everything is done exactly in accordance with the plans and specs, as well as the plans and specs are like vetted separately. So we do feel like confident that, you know, this affordable kind of build with all the different parties, the state's parties and like the investor, it's more hands on deck than just like a regular market build where you have the GC building and, you know, and that's it.
And you know, there are gonna be, has to be certain inspections that have to be passed to ensure the building is up to code. Just like when we purchase a house, so it's nice that we have several layers to protect us. And you know, so we can be in this century and beyond.
Commissioner Decker, do you want to discuss more, or you're okay? So should we, it seems like the takeaway, I mean, I'll open this up to like the city as well, but it seems like the takeaway is we should move forward with the maximum build across the whole project. And then take it from there with like the feedback that comes like out of that. So the board is up for maximum build.
That would be my opinion.
Absolutely.
Okay. And again, this isn't your redevelopment plan that we're asking you to agree on, but definitely like the perspective of like HHA. Okay.
Right, just let me to make this caveat, we'll move forward with that idea,
Design.
that vision in mind. But keep in mind that if, you know, there are reasons that we may have to modify or pivot, you know, we'll do so definitely with the best interest of the authority in mind. But we wanna, we'd like to get, biggest and best, if that's proper, if we can. But, you know, we'll see what happens. But that's what we're looking at.
Yep, absolutely.
Which is consistent with what I said when I got here. I wanted to at least double the size of our inventory, so.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So like we will endorse like Malco Board's vision and maximum build, some just for your own, like, just like a heads up. Some of like the pushback we might receive might be from like the actual community, like the common council, and also some of the pushback we might receive might be from the financing perspective as well, which is not something we've really discussed, but from a financing perspective, given like, you know, more units, more expensive build, less like what they call volume cap, which is like a bonding capacity to actually cover the building. So just like, we're gonna move forward, and this is a great proposal, I think, but just like to give you guys a heads up. So there will be a juncture where we'll come back and, you know, like if there's too much pushback in one direction, we'll just let you guys know and we can rediscuss it. Again, like, we're not asking you to endorse anything right now, but we're gonna take this as like our collective HHA Malco position moving forward. So perfect. Sounds good.
Can you just explain the volume cap?
Sure. So if John was here, he'd do a better job because I go into the weeds. But when the tax, the financing structure we're looking at is called like a 4% tax exempt bond financing structure. And so each project has like costs that are eligible toward this, like costs that have to be covered by a certain number of like bond proceeds. So over 50% of your project needs to be covered by like these like bonds. And they only have a certain number of bonds that they can allocate like every year.
Mm.
So their allocation, depending on what it is, like if they can't match 50% of what is proposed to be, so at 100 about units, we're at maybe like at $51 million, like, you know, that would need to be covered. For example, if we're at 200 units, it might be 70 million that needs to be covered, right? These are just like numbers that they don't mean anything, by the way, for the reporters here especially. They don't mean anything, but so they only have 55 million, like that's going to be a consideration. Or for every unit additional, we're going to need subordinate financing. So depending on how much subordinate financing they have, that may also be a limitation. So they can offer $50,000 a unit subordinate financing per unit if you have 100 units. It's different than 200 units. Like just the dollars that they have to put out there to cover more units is just more.
Okay,
Yeah.
Isn't the potential return greater though?
yeah, that's what I.
So it depends on how you're looking at it. For something like the number of units, like if you're looking at it as like you're spreading out like the number of units to increase over the same footprint, maybe. Right, like, but in terms of what they're looking to support and like our particular build with the number of units, I don't know if like something like the additional revenue that's coming off of these affordable units is going to be anything to offset like, you know, like lesser financing needs. So I think it's going to be a 1-for-1 with greater financing needs, the greater need for investment that we're asking from them. We also, this is like a separate comment, but our area of the city of Hudson is not in what they call like a basis boost area. So for a lot of investment properties in affordable housing, including in Hudson, they get an extra like boost of tax credit equity, like an extra boost of investment just for being in like a certain area. We actually fall in an incredible area of Hudson that has like incomes that are so high generally that we don't actually get that extra boost. So despite us very much needing that extra investment, we don't get that as like an automatic investment from the investor. So like we're leaving money on the table because we just don't have that investment, not for any reason other than just the way that they drew out the amount of that's in.
Yeah, we're literally like blocks away.
Yeah, we're like a block short of,
Really?
yeah.
And when did that get drawn or?
This one, I checked from last year too, just in case to see if we could get, grandfathered in. That's not also a thing, by the way, for the reporters here. But it was like this last year too. So between at least this year and last year, the incomes for this area are just, too high for us to.
And what's the name of that math? I just want to like.
So there's it's 2 ways to get a boost in the tax credit investment. It's from either a qualified census tract, to be in a qualified census tract, or to be in a difficult development area. So DDA or a QCT would both offer us with like a 30% boost in like the investment.
Wow.
qualified census tract or what?
in a difficult development area.
And this definitely was like, I know this was, well. I take it back. Well, as of like, 20. Well, never mind. I know there was definitely a census tract. Yeah.
Like a relining, like a redrawing of it, yeah. It makes sense that it was somewhat recent, but it won't be recent enough for us to like lean on any sort of, favors for qualifying in the former draft.
Mhm.
And so I'm happy to go into it more too, but it gets super like dense and I go into the weeds, so. So let me bring you there, if you don't want to go there.
No, I think that's pretty
Okay.
clear. Appreciate it.
Sure. Okay, well, thank you everyone for your time. That was amazing feedback and we know exactly how to move forward, at least in terms of next steps, and then we'll reconnect and, we'll reconnect. Since this city's here, do you guys have any comments or? Not, but.
Sure, I'm curious if you want to share like any of the input you heard from residents, or like current residents about what they were thinking about.
Yeah, so the residents have been pretty vocal with like, the things that they want to see. First and foremost, they want to see amenity spaces. Do you mean specifically on height, by the way? I'm sorry, in density or just
I
all
was
of it?
more to that point.
Okay,
but yeah.
I just
but
realized that,
if you want
sorry.
anything in general, it's fine.
Yeah, well, so it's interesting. The residents, I think, are on both sides. Some are like, we love the height. I'm on a high floor now, it's magnificent. Some are like, yeah, it's exactly the opposite. Yeah, it's really fascinating, it's the story of, you're not gonna be able to please everybody because everybody's perspectives are gonna be completely different. So, on the height, that was like the general reaction was one or the other. Not so many people were vocal about being in between or indifferent, but definitely one or the other. Also on things like, density, it was either don't care, don't mind, like not don't care, we don't mind it. Or it is like, this would be too much in density here, like too many people here all at once. Most of them were very excited about the amenities and like the actual pedestrianization of State Street. You had a lot of requests that we incorporated here into the ground floor between like a computer room, a gym. Obviously, we recreated the basketball court. Some of the things here aren't going to reflect, these are like old, like mood boards here, but they're not going to reflect the latest, which is like, for example, moving the basketball court just a little bit more central versus like, on top of one of the buildings, removing the fountain. So things like that are going to be incorporated into like the next rendering or like a next draft, the next mood board, springboard for discussion. And they were really excited about the incorporation of some social services, which kind of led us to discuss like who could be here on site, for example, for a community space that can provide these natural built-in commercial services, social services, which we haven't gone down like the path to explore more deeply since we were here last. But people were just really excited about like having extra space, even including bike storage. There were concerns about, having like enough parking. There were like just a lot of things that we really tried to account for in this proposal. So more larger laundry rooms. Sorry, I'm now like going off on a tangent with all like the comments here, but larger laundry rooms, places for like them to fold their clothes. Those are like easy square footage, like earmarks that we've already made.
Two questions. First of all, when you add more units, after you get to a certain height, if you add more units, isn't the incremental cost per unit less than if you hit, yeah, so if you, once you add an extra floor, the incremental cost, the unit cost per unit, because there's going to be volume discount.
I agree on the construction, the idea of the construction. It is interesting. So there's actually two different kinds of construction here. One is, and this is also factors into the reason of if you're going to pick 5 or 6, pick 5 versus 6. So there are two different types of construction. One is like and apologies, I'm going to butcher this, but one is like a steel frame construction and one is like a wood frame construction. So that's gonna impact the cost. So the higher you go, you're gonna be implicating steel frame construction. So I'm looking over here as if like someone could like fix the word there, because it's not steel frame, but it's steel versus like wood. And so that's gonna impact the cost. So at a certain point, and I believe that's actually 5 stories, which is why that was like a magical number for us. That gets impacted. And then at a certain point, you're right, though, if you build 6 floors versus 7, it's still the same foundation, it's still the same subsurface parking, right? It's all the same amenities. So there will be some sort of build efficiencies. Where we don't know there are gonna be efficiencies yet are, for example, the actual impact on the financing, which is a little bit different too. Because if you create another 20 apartments, taking in $600 a month in rent, you're like, there's a little bit of loss in each of those apartments, right, coming in, that you need the higher rents that are already there to offset those rents. So you're not bringing in necessarily more revenue from an operating perspective, which is, I think, the difference there. So from a cost build perspective, yes. But from like an operating perspective, I don't know. And even from the cost build perspective, it's yes, but still qualified with like the impact on the bill. And sorry, neither, like the cost part I just shared is an overshare, because despite the Mount Co construction name. It's actually not a fortune of mine, so. Yeah.
The other thing is, sometimes for the bottom floors, they talk about retail space.
Mhm.
Other times they talk about social service space.
Yeah.
Is the idea to have it open to both and see which moves in, or is it going to be a commitment to social service space instead of retail space?
So it's a great question. So right now, for purposes of this discussion, we flagged square footage for either, it's together called commercial space, whether you want to put in like a social services space in there, or if you want like a retail tenant of some sort, health clinic, or doesn't matter what. So it's earmarked for square footage right now. And in addition, I'll say separately, HHA's made a request for guest offices for like actual like benefits to be on site, whether it's like a SSI like person here to help enrollment or something like that. So those will be separate guest offices that are also earmarked. But we haven't really discussed that with you guys or made real proposals aside from like, initial passing comment on, for example, like a Hudson youth something or, but like nothing has gone down the discussion path. At the same time too, we were kind of earmarking that discussion a little bit, or like placeholding that discussion a little bit, because we wanted to see if the board wanted to decrease the heights of the buildings, if we wanted to actually use the commercial space for residential space. To like actually put units in those spaces instead of like flagging it for commercial. Sure. No other questions? Happy
Anybody
to.
else? Questions or comments?
Well, thank you.
No, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. It's still, while it's getting thicker and more complicated, it's still very exciting. But we're gonna do our best to navigate forward and address issues as they arise. So the next order of business is resolution number 542, payment schedules. Resolution number 542, whereas the housing authority is finding it increasingly more and more difficult to place qualified Section 8 applicants and rental housing in the city of Hudson due to landlords raising the rates of rent on available rental properties citywide, and whereas the Hudson Housing Authority also bases its need on the average rents of the city of Hudson are much higher than the standard for Columbia County. And the Housing Authority is struggling to get new HAB contracts due to the Housing Authority's low payment standards. And whereas the Hudson Housing Authority wishes to implement the current payment standard of 110% of the 2024 FMRs, fair market rents, as reflected in the attached payment standard schedule. And whereas the U.S. Department of HUD allows PHAs to increase their payment standard at the HHA's discretion to meet the changing local city/county geographical markets not to exceed 110% of the FMR. And now therefore be resolved that the Board of Commissioners hereby adopts implementing payment standards to 110% of FMRs for the Section 8 program for 2024. Any questions?
Tiny question.
Yes.
So, Is 110% the maximum that we're allowed to?
Yes, so if you recall, the last time we did this, we did 120, and thank you for the question. We went to 120%. And so that will last until December 31st. That's what we've been allowed to do. I am waiting for guidance. I've asked if we can do it again, and I've been informed by HUD that they're literally waiting for guidance, and so they'll get back to me. If it comes out, we'll definitely apply for it, but the maximum that they allow us to go to right now is 110%.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Only, this is really dumb, but like, so I think in your,
No, no.
you have, well, it's not a question, it's a suggestion. You have it in your template, you have the word resolved is wrong. It's resolved. And it's like the.
Gotcha. I'll make the correction.
I
Thank
just
you.
wanted to point that out.
No, thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you. Yes,
So that percent, is that the percent of something that you're allowed to subsidize that the HHA subsidizes?
right. So the payment standards, the payment standards change every year. They come out from HUD. It is public information. But I have a copy of the document I can share with you.
And what has it been until now? What percentage of it?
100, well, we just recently voted it in. I can't remember what meeting, but we are using 120% of the current of the 2023 FMRs, fair market rents.
And before that, it was before the 120%.
Before that, we were only at 100%. We hadn't been changed in a number of years.
All right, okay. And thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions from the board? Is there a motion?
Motion.
I'll second it.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Zachary, and seconded by
Definitely.
Commissioner Decker. We'll take a roll call vote. Commissioner Smith,
Aye.
Commissioner Cousins is absent. Commissioner Wolf,
Hi,
Commissioner Zachary,
Aye.
Commissioner Bennett is absent, and Commissioner Decker. The ayes have it. Thank you. The next item is what I put on the agenda was a resolution support letter for Kearney Group. The Hudson Housing Authority, resolution number 543. Whereas the Hudson Housing Authority wants to support affordable housing and options for the city of Hudson, and where the Hudson Housing Authority is striving to improve its utilization of affordable housing. And whereas Kearney Realty and Development Group Incorporated, Kearney Group and the Hudson River Housing Authority, are partnering on an approximately 78,000 square foot project containing 70 apartments to be known as the Mill Street Loft Project. Whereas the Kearney Group has requested the Hudson Housing Authority provide a letter of support for the Lofts project, indicating an intent to provide referrals for one, the relocation of existing Hudson Housing Authority residents as a part of the Hudson Housing Authority Plan Redevelopment Project, and two, underutilized housing choice voucher. And whereas the Hudson Housing Authority wishes to support the Kearney Group and HRH in the expansion of affordable housing choices in the city of Hudson, now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Commissioners hereby authorizes the executive director to sign a letter in support of the Lofts project in substantially the form set forth as Exhibit A. Any questions?
what's the like affordable breakdown of the project?
They are
Oh,
going
they
to,
have that.
yeah,
on
it's
the
in
note.
the,
Oh,
yeah.
sorry, okay.
But, my, question is the number one, the relocation of existing Hudson Housing Authority residents
Yes.
as a part of their plan. I didn't know that a part of our plan was relocating anybody to Kearney. I thought we had a phase one, which was us building our own relocation plan.
That is correct, we do, but this would be another option since they're building in our. This was just so you know, a review by the attorney, and then we met with the city and the attorney group as well as Marco, but there is their building will be built first, and so if anybody is interested in voluntarily, they don't have to go, but they may see it and say, I'd like to move here. They would be able to do so,
Mm.
which would just lessen our burden. It doesn't mean that we're gonna decrease our inventory. We'll still have our inventory, but it will just make room per se. But it's the whole idea is to assist in the expansion of affordable housing throughout Hudson.
But I don't think, why would we need the assistance though when we have a plan for our residents? I mean, I understand the number 2, underutilizing the housing choice vouchers, because that's what we did for 75 North 7th Street for Galvin. But the relocation of existing Hudson Housing Authority residents this is just the first time now. What about you, Rebecca?
Well, I understand what Jeffrey is explaining is that it would be voluntary, like it's not like forced relocation, it's like.
I know, but I'm just saying that the fact that we're gonna be I mean, I'm just stating that the fact that right now we're literally voting on a resolution that says helping with the relocation of existing Hudson Housing Authority residents, when I didn't know that we needed help with relocating Hudson Housing Authority residents, because I thought that was the whole phase 1 for us. So like, why are we?
Well, so let's see, is phase one meant to provide enough units for everyone?
It is.
Yeah,
Okay,
But their building is gonna be built first. And so again, it's just an option.
yeah, which, I
And-
mean, think about it like this, maybe, like, let's say this building is built. People can choose if they wish to move into it, then that could actually mean like other people could move into, am I right?
Our units, correct.
Our units.
And this is
so
just
then-
in support of their affordable housing project. I mean,
This is a letter that they take to their funders, all their
Exactly,
applications, and they say, is
exactly.
everybody in this community into this idea? And by us saying that, a
assisting.
large entity in the community is saying, yes, we are in support and we will be partnering with them if possible for relocation, whatever, right?
It's nothing mandatory and.
So it doesn't change
I know
anything.
exactly what it means, but I mean, people needed to be relocated starting about 20-25 years ago. And now all of a sudden they're coming our way and like, hey, we wanna.
Well, it's more like they're just, like, there happened to be a lot of, or not just happened to be, there's been a lot of work put into creating a lot of different affordable housing development that's happening concurrently. So it's just, I
don't know.
But I think that, yeah, I mean, I understand what Nick is saying too, which is like, this is basically not going to in any way mandate that people have to move or, or anything like that. It's, and it doesn't in any way affect what.
Of course, I know that, but the thing is, I'm just like, okay.
Would you like, opinion from, because the letter was reviewed by the attorney and they understand with her, would you like an opinion from Robert John if you wanna?
Sure.
Hey, Ravonna, can you hear me?
12
Hi,
units.
yes.
Hey, how are you?
Hi, Rob.
How are you?
Yeah, so good. I was, I was listening to that and I understand the concern. The letter that they have proposed, we made some changes to it. So, we certainly have the ability to make additional changes to it. If the issue for you is really the language saying relocation, that came from their description, but it doesn't have to be our description. What they're looking for is a general support letter. And that to me makes sense because again, it's consistent with your mission and your goals and having options. But it appears to me that maybe the the stumbling block is just the language that speaks to relocation. And I was wondering, that may not need to be in there. So if that would make you feel more comfortable, take that out. That may be a way to approach it.
Yeah, Rob, I really like the letter that we worked on with Galvin for 75 North 7th Street. I really would love it to be similar to that.
Okay.
Do you want to read what that, I mean,
Well,
does
yeah,
anybody have a
actually,
copy of that
let's see.
letter?
It's literally,
Well,
oh, Robert,
Well, yeah, since you,
yeah, sure.
I mean, if you know, you can tell us.
Yeah, I mean, it's literally basically steps number 2, like underutilizing housing choice vouchers. We're willing to give them a certain amount of vouchers for these units. Like, I don't want relocation.
I think it's just identifying another mechanism where they may be of assistance. It may not even happen that way. And
Maybe-
based on what we're proposing, it's highly likely that a lot of our residents will want to stay here.
Can I ask you,
Michelle,
Rhonda?
you have a comment?
Can I just ask one little
Sure.
clarifying question? Is the thing that really bothers you that it says indicating an intent to provide referrals? Like, because that does seem to imply
Yeah,
like,
like-
we are planning to offer this as the choice. Is that?
Yeah, literally starting at indicating all the way ending at, let's see, redevelopment project, literally there to there. I don't like. No, I don't,
You have a comment, Michelle?
but
I'm sorry.
I'm only one person. I really am. You guys can also chime in and.
I'm not sure you're only one person, actually. There's something powerful.
You have a comment, Michelle?
Yes, if I can explain a little bit more, so, the idea was to just give a little more breathing room, like we all know development, that things can take longer than we think, or sometimes unit sizes, give you was explaining the financing, you don't know where some of the larger units are, so this plan has more 3-bedroom units in it as well. And so the idea is that, there's just a little bit, there's other housing options on the table in case that's needed for relocation. Again, it's voluntary if people want to move, and also as we know, like we're not able to add, like not able to, like the units right now are static, right? So as some units are offline, so this helps just kind of add some more options. And to your point about like for years nothing has happened. Well, this is all part of, Mayor Johnson brought you in, brought this whole new board in, we got a lot of housing. This has been kind of part of the plan since 2021 the state told us they wanted to see more options available to help like reduce some of that burden in case you don't have all the options online at the same time, just to have some more space on the table. So that's why that's there. The building, has some of those 3-bedroom units reserved. And we think it's like a good option to have in case people want to voluntarily go to that building. And it's a project the city, this is our land, we're putting it up, we're really in support of this project. We think that it's the income levels and the population served. There's some units in there that are specifically for folks with disabilities that have supportive services that will be attached. That's something that's not in the city already. And we think this project can, complement a lot of the stuff you guys are doing here. And so that's why we're, hoping we can have your all support.
What if we just added voluntary right before relocation? Just to make it crystal clear that this is never going to be a situation of forced relocation or non-voluntary relocation.
Rob, I don't see a problem with that, Rob.
Yeah, I don't see a problem with that. And I think, if there are other revisions that that people want to make, I think there's an opportunity to do that as well.
This is the only issue. I believe, let me just ask this question. I believe their submission is November 7th, and we're not gonna have a board meeting before that. How would you recommend that we amend and go about voting on that? Without necessarily having a special meeting for that one issue.
Oh, the language of approval is, substantially the form. So, I think we and we understand the, the changes, that need to be made. If the commissioners were comfortable in, in a vote, but also, with a markup or with, the comments in the record as to how it's supposed to change. I think that would allow us to make those changes, run it by the commissioners. And certainly we could utilize it, the time between now and the 7th. Again, I think it would only take a day or two, actually, and then then you'd be in a position to provide something, even if it's something similar to the the previous letter that we did for Galvin.
Let me just, okay, but let me read and edit that was just provided by Commissioner Wolf. Actually, could you? Oh, no.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then,
So, it seems like it could work to change it just to say, Kearney Group has requested that the Hudson Housing Authority provide a letter of support for the lofts project indicating a willingness to provide to provide referrals for the voluntary relocation of existing, and then everything else is the same.
were you able to hear that, Rob?
Yeah, I've got no issue with that.
Okay. Sounds good. So we would vote on that as is, and we would make those revisions accordingly and then circulate the letter for like final approval. Or just a final, yep, that's what we want to go forward. Yes, sir. Rob?
Yes.
Okay.
I realize you're talking to me. Sorry.
Yes, sir. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
It's a problem with
So
Zoom
we'll,
sometimes.
so the resolution will stand with Commissioner Wolf's amendments. We'll vote yes or no to support the, to whether we're going to write a letter of support. And once we, just suppose we vote yes, then we will go back, with the revised copy, I'll circulate it. And once it's, everybody's in agreement, we will forward it to.
We can't just vote to amend and then vote on the amended resolution.
I think that's all.
Yeah, for sure.
We're right here, like not have to do it and
Oh, yeah, no,
Oh, okay.
that's voted now.
got it.
Yeah, I was trying to explain.
Okay.
The process.
I didn't
but yes.
understand. I'm sorry, my fault.
I explained too much, I'm sorry. Yeah, we're gonna vote for the amendment. And if we're in agreement, we'll go forward and we'll
Got it.
circulate the letter, yep. So, any other questions? May I get a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Commissioner Decker, any second?
I'll second that.
Second by Commissioner Wolf. Roll call vote, Commissioner Smith.
Aye.
Commissioner Cousins is absent. Commissioner Wolf,
Aye.
Commissioner Zocco,
All right,
Commissioner Bennett is absent, and Commissioner Decker,
Aye.
the motion carried. Thank you. So, if there is nothing else, is there a motion to adjourn?
I make the motion.
oh, you beat me to it. Second,
Commissioner Decker, and seconds?
quick on the draw. I seconded.
Commissioner Zocco, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
All right, thanks, everybody.